Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Hello everybody and welcome in to another episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. It is I, Colton Robertson, and today we continue our 52-year journey through film. And I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
What up, what up? It is a momentous occasion today. And,
a momentous occasion indeed. If you were
we-
with us last week for our coverage of Training Day, you might have noticed at the end of Training Day that we said we were going to be covering Gangs of New York. And while that, legendary film, classic, I've heard it's held in extremely high regard, I continue to not see it, because today we decided to go with an upgrade. Something better.
Can't
than
believe
anything.
we missed this in the first place.
I can't fathom it. Something better than everything that came before it and remains untouched in the time since. Today we cover Scooby-Doo from 2002.
I mean, I feel kind of disappointed in myself that this wasn't the insta-lock for 2002, knowing full well the full scope that it has over cinema in general.
Filmmaking was never the same.
Yeah, we're covering all these movies, Godfather, Shawshank Redemption, it's just this movie, even though it comes after, feels like it almost transcends time, and that just film just was never the same.
Look what we have now. Look, we've got Groot. We've got King Shark. That doesn't exist without Scooby-Doo. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Sure, we got Jar Jar Binks a couple years earlier. And Jar Jar, that's a game changer for sure, but this is what elevated the technology George Lucas was working with and moved it to the next space where we were like, Shaggy's interacting with a real dog. That's a real dog.
I never once thought that there were any visual effect shots in this movie at all. I thought this was fully captured in camera the entire time, which full well might be. And maybe that's why it is such a revolutionary movie. Maybe they've made Spooky Island for real.
They went to Spooky Island, and let me lay the groundwork for the people though. The movie was released on June 14th, 2002. The screenplay was the story was by Craig Titley and James Gunn, and James Gunn wrote the screenplay for this. So, I went to King Shark, I went to Groot. There's a reason for that, man. James Gunn knows what he's doing with a CG character, and directed by Raja Gosnell. James Gunn knows what to do. We've discussed this on Peacemaker. We've discussed this on the Suicide Squad. We've discussed this on the Guardians movies. The way he can make the scummiest of characters sympathetic, like our Scrappy Doo. I feel his pain. I like the way his performance bleeds through on the screen. It's unlike anything we've seen so far in our 52-year journey through film.
Yeah, we have, the classic gang here. And I'm thinking back to like The Breakfast Club or, American Graffiti where we're following this kind of gang around, but this is the gang that I think of whenever I'm thinking of movies.
Of the gang.
This is the gang.
Oh, and let's be real. The way they bring these classic characters to life, going back to the animated, the cartoon back from the day for the Scooby-Doo fandom. You got Shaggy, Fred, Daphne, Velma, and Scoob. And fuck, did they embody those roles pretty well? Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, I don't know, man. I think that man deserves some sort of award for having to act opposite a CG character that is not there the entire time, and doing
exceedingly well at it.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, we all know. I mean, having to play Shaggy as well. I mean, that's some shoes to step into.
Yeah, it's asking a lot of an actor.
I mean, whenever you're already the strongest being of all, across the entire multiverse, however you want to put it. There's no one who can stand up to Shaggy if you give him a buffet of food, and he's even stronger with his pal Scoob. And yeah,
the way they
insane
strengthen each other, man. The way they strengthen each other. This is Rocket Groot. This is everything. Shaggy and Scoob.
Shaggy and Scoob walked so that everyone else could fly. And the thing is, they weren't even walking to begin with. They were flying already.
They were fucking flying, man. Nearly moves me to tears to discuss how fantastic Shaggy and Scooby were in this movie together. And Linda Cardellini as Velma. I think Velma is my second favorite role in this movie. She really kills it, and this was my introduction to Linda Cardellini when I was a youngin'. Back in the day, we've put Spider-Man 2 amongst those like videotapes you spun until the wheels fell off. And this was another one for me. I watched this all the time, and I had quite the crush on Linda Cardellini and Velma from a very young age.
I can say the exact same. My brother loved Daphne. That was his crush. Was Daphne. But man,
that's how it went.
There was something about Velma. There was just something. Even before she had her spirit taken away.
Oh yeah,
in the thing. But even before
the charm about her, man. She had the charm about her.
She's a brainiac too. She's
smart. Knows her worth. She steps away early on in that movie. She goes, what? You're not recognizing me for what I bring to this team. I have to leave. And you know what? I respect the shit out of that. And from the time I was 5, I was like, that's a strong, powerful woman.
Damn.
And I want to follow her to the ends of the earth.
Yeah, they've been a gang, for quite a while before the beginning of this movie, and she doesn't take shit from anybody, even her own gang, whenever
they drop us in the thick of it towards the end of the reign of supremacy for Mystery Incorporated. Starting this movie with them falling apart. It's something you never want to see amongst Mystery Inc. It really, I remember we were talking about Alfred and Batman recently, and it's like whenever they're at odds, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't make me happy. I need it to be comfy, and this movie really makes you feel like it's might not be a possibility. Like this might not have a happy ending. And that's another thing. The stakes in this movie, they were real.
I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster from beginning to end, and there's really no sign of stopping. I mean, they literally go to an amusement park, to Spooky Island, possibly the greatest set, the greatest creation that I can think of. I mean, Jurassic Park.
As far as movie and television theme parks are concerned, they say Jurassic Park, they say Westworld. I say Spooky Island.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I wanted to go. I'd like to see some dinosaurs, but I mean, my heart is in Spooky Island. That's where my heart is at. And
that's home. Home is where the heart is, and Spooky Island is home. Yeah, Velma's a queen. I will say, for all the love I'm raining on this movie, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred. I like all the aspects of this movie, and I like Freddie Prinze Jr. And I loved him in Friends. He's the voice of Arcane and Jarrus in Star Wars Rebels, but he's far and away the weak link here. If we're being critical.
Wow, I didn't put the Kane and Jarrus thing together. It's incredible, but he is quite the asshole in this movie. And the thing is that everything in this movie is done perfectly, exactly how they wanted to, for it to be done.
Yes.
So even though, we do kind of hate him. He's wanted to be hated.
Yeah, he's playing a douchebag. He's playing a douchebag.
Mm-hmm. And just, I mean, it's perfect that he is Kanan. You know, he probably saw this role, this, you know, coming from the future with all of his Force knowledge and such, and how wise he is. But this is, you know, this is his true, where he got his true wisdom from this role, from Fred,
to be sure.
And I mean, you know, looking at our decade awards here, it's going to be tough for anyone else to win. You know,
hey, I've already made some additions on the Google Doc, and I'd love to rattle them off for you. I'm thinking this is a shoe-in for set design. Scooby-Doo's definitely up there for set design. Spooky Island, I mean, what a fucking place to be. I can't fathom it. Costume design has to be there. The classicness of the costumes were being presented in the Mystery Inc. gang. I mean, those are iconic, and they fulfill them perfectly, along with all the scary little motherfuckers we see throughout the movie who aren't the CGI characters, the ones wearing costumes. You know, like I'm scared. I'm scared. It's had a great soundtrack. You know, the music swells at the end of the movie whenever everything's come together. You know, the Mystery Inc. has won out. Scrappy-Doo's been defeated. He's been exposed for being a robot. And we get this real, I don't know, I want to say John Williams-esque horn swelling. That's just like like it's just so fucking powerful. And I was like,
talk about a twist in cinema right there. Oh. Scrappy-Doo being behind it the entire time and coming out of a human, you know, that wasn't a human. That's just, I mean, I'm thinking of, you know, Darth Vader being Luke's father. I mean, it doesn't really hold true to Scrappy-Doo being behind the events at Spooky Island. So, I mean, we get probably one of the biggest plot twists in all of cinema.
In all of cinema history. Yeah, Scrappy-Doo, you can't, you know, and the MCU could learn a thing or two from Scrappy-Doo. You know, I've had gripes about the MCU television format where it's like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff happening, and then in the second to last episode, it's like, oh, here's actually the villain. No, you don't know the motive. No, you don't know shit about it. No, you don't know anything. We'll explain it down the line at some point. You know what they make a fucking parent immediately? Motive. Why Scrappy-Doo is behind it. You might not know that he's behind it, but you know Scrappy-Doo has animosity in his heart from that little 5-minute clip that they show in the middle of the movie. When Velma's telling her love interest, you know, she's like, yo, hear this story. Scrappy-Doo was a fucking menace. And they set it up, you know? I need setup. I need you to tell me this guy could be a problem.
Yeah,
and then for the twist to happen and me still not see it coming. What
James Gunn was in his bag here, you know, and maybe if he, you know, with Guardians, you know, he tried to come up to this level, but you know, maybe when he goes back, he can remember back at what he has done perfectly, in moving forward, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with this movie. I mean, it's from beginning to end just riveting. I mean, there's so many twists, you know, not just Scrappy. You know, we feel like some of our characters are dead at some points. You know, they have lost their soul. They have lost, you know, and everything. Velma has to get them back for everybody. You know, we don't know if they're coming back. They're evil now. Is the gang truly broken up? Is the gang ever going to be the gang again? We don't know. But man,
that's what's really frightening about this movie. You know, when I was a youngin', this movie scared me. It scared me deeply. And, you know, part of that can be owed to their performances. You know, when I go with Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, you know, I'm going Sarah Michelle Gellar. The fear she presented before obstacles and the way she overcame that fear and was like, nah, I'm powerful. I am woman. I was like, okay, Daphne, do your thing. And I believe her in those moments. She is Daphne. She's not Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's Daphne. And the same can go for Linda Cardellini. We've already marveled at her performance quite a bit. She did an incredible job. And I mean, I can't imagine the Best Actor nod not going to Matthew Lillard for Shaggy here.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Right now we have Denzel Washington, as Alonzo, and Russell Crowe as Maximus, and their performances were great and all, but too bad it had to come in the same decade as Scooby-Doo.
It's just a damn shame for everyone else in the decade that Scooby-Doo had to be released in 2002. I wish it could. It feels like it almost should exist outside of time. Like it's an entity all unto itself, almost all powerful in a sense.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like how Star Wars was back in our decade awards, where we knew it was going to win certain awards, but this case I love Star Wars, and it almost pains me to say,
clean sweep,
but
man.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for really anything to beat Scooby-Doo here.
It just might be a clean sweep. I can't imagine anything overcoming this, and I think that some of the crazier things, on top of our cast here, and just in the main sense, Matthew Lillard, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Linda Cardellini, Freddie Prinze Jr., those are some pretty big names. But how about Mondavarius? How about Mondavarius being good old Mr. Bean?
I mean, what a casting choice here. He plays the role perfectly. Starts out as this, kind of fun amusement park owner. You kind of are a little suspicious of him a little bit right away. You're watching a Scooby-Doo movie. We're trying to find, we're trying to solve some mystery here. But at first, he's this fun, friendly guy. I guess that is before he is Scrappy-Doo, or before he is Scrappy at this point. So he truly is, a different person at some points in this movie.
Much to think about here. I think.
Or is he Scrappy from the beginning?
I think he's Scrappy from the get-go. You see, at the end of the film, whenever Mondavarius is brought out of his little chamber, he's grown a fucking beard and he's got long hair, and he's like, "It's been 2 years." And Shaggy's like, "You stink, brother. Go take a shower."
He's been planning this for 2 years.
Scrappy-Doo's been on his bullshit.
That's
a
14
villain.
years for Scrappy, by the way. To put that in terms of dog.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered the.
2 years doesn't sound like a whole lot for us, but for Scrappy, that's a large portion of his life that he's been planning this out. He's kind of Ultron this shit. He was there, he's gone, and he came back after 14 years, and planned this shit. I mean,
he's so strong as an antagonist. He's up there with Joaquin Phoenix's character in The Gladiator, and amongst others. Like we've had some great antagonists up there with, frankly, Agent Smith, Scrappy-Doo right there alongside him, Kristoff the Creator, I think too. Warden Norton, The Shawshank Redemption. I think Scrappy-Doo's on par with him. At the very least, maybe even better. James Gunn just knows how to write an antagonist,
He just knows how to write a perfect film is the thing. That's where I'll come back to, is that there's really not an aspect of this movie that falls. I can't really think of any part of this movie that I hate. It doesn't slow down, and
there are no weaknesses.
It's incredible that this movie doesn't get the praise that it deserves. It's the awards that it wins. It wins, the most important awards, arguably the Teen Choice Awards.
Of course.
And it got nominated a whole lot. But the actual
Oscar
winner
noms,
here,
and Oscar noms, and frankly, this is why I don't have trust in the Academy.
Yeah, and maybe it's because they knew that it would win over everything else, and it would just be a year for Scooby-Doo, and that's it. And
they were like, we can't give Scooby-Doo the clean sweep.
Yeah, I was 2 years old here, and when I was watching the Oscars and I didn't see Scooby-Doo come up for a single nom or a win here, I couldn't believe it. From that point on,
I punched the screen. I turned around to my mother and father and I said, "Fuck this shit, Mom and Dad." They said, "Colton, language. When did you learn to speak so well?"
Yeah, and then I explained to them that Scooby-Doo wasn't nominated or won, and they said, "Oh, I understand." They understood the language. They understood my outbreak, because I did the same thing. I threw the TV across the living room. I couldn't handle it. And back then, those TVs,
they
we
were
didn't have flat screens.
They were really big. Like
really big.
I think I kind of gained the strength of Scrappy-Doo in his form where he's taking on all the souls. I think I gained the strength of Scrappy-Doo in that moment, lifted the giant box TV that I had in my living room and threw it out of the window, down a 20-foot drop. It shattered.
Talk about some just canon strength, just titans in this movie. Shaggy and Scooby and Scrappy. I mean, we're thinking Marvel, we're thinking, DC heroes or whatever here, but like no one stands a chance.
They said Black Adam was going to change the power dynamic of the DC universe. Here's the thing, Black Adam, you're fucking nothing compared to Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy-Doo.
I mean, Shaggy has. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen. There have been some fan-made films of Shaggy taking on some of the strongest characters in the MCU and across the multiverse, and he wins pretty easily every time. I'm thinking, he's taken down Thanos with the full gauntlet before. He's taken down Big Chungus. I mean, just absolute titans in the film industry, and you give
is a titan of the film industry.
Yeah, you give Shaggy, Shaggy alone. You give him a plate of food. You give him just a buffet in front of him. It's over. I mean,
potentially my favorite part of this movie is we cut back from after they've split up and it's like a few years later, right? And we get a view of the Mystery Incorporated van, and you hear Shaggy and Scoob laughing their asses off, and you hear Shaggy go, "This is some primo, man!" And then you see the smoke billowing out of the top of the van, and then you go in there, and he says, "Talk about toasted," and it's they're cooking in there, they're cooking, but we know what they mean. We know.
I mean, talk about the easiest mode of transportation for our Dream Blunt rotation for the Aughts Awards.
Man, that's so easy.
There's nothing else that I could think of.
Nothing will even come close.
It is just the answer. It's just how it is going to be. And I think I can just go ahead and add
Dream Blunt
here.
rotation's getting Shaggy, Scoob, and the Mystery Machine.
Mode of transportation there.
And I mean, how about Isla Fisher popping up in this movie on the plane? I'm Mary Jane. That's like my favorite name, man. I fucking love that. And Isla Fisher, I think she's a really funny actress, and she's really good in a lot of stuff. A couple years later, she would go on to be in Wedding Crashers, which is personally my favorite Isla Fisher role. She does fucking hilarious in that.
Now You See Me. I like her in there. Very. She's a
established actress. Yeah. She's very, much under her belt.
Forget about her role. I guess we're focusing on the gang, Scrappy, and everyone else. We forget about Mary Jane sometimes. Remembering about this.
Hey, she comes up at the end and she puts Shaggy and Scooby in those chokeholds and lifts them up the wall, and it's like, yo, this shit crazy.
I mean, there's some strength in this universe that it's untapped, and maybe in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness we visit Spooky Island. Maybe this is what unlocks everything. Maybe we think Kang is behind all of this, but I don't know. Scrappy is pretty resourceful, and he's been planning this for quite some time. And yeah, who's to think that he only planned this in his 14 years? that I don't know. I think he has more in store for us, possibly.
I like to think so. It's he is a multiversal entity. There's no doubt about it. On some everything, everywhere, all at once sort of proportions.
Mm-hmm.
But another just fantastically quotable movie. There's just so many quotes here. A little interaction between Velma and Fred. I know you. All you care about are swimsuit models. And Fred's like, look, I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on to. And I was like, yep, this is a 2002 movie for children. Yeah, and you want to talk about, indoctrinating children modernly with sexuality. Yeah, man. It's been happening for straight people for a very long time. Just go ahead and let people love who they love, man. Sorry. Yeah. Little tangentially related subject, but like, come on. There's been dudes who have been obviously horny for women in movies for years. So I think man can love man. I think woman can love woman. Just go ahead and shut the fuck up.
I mean, the power couple that is, Shaggy and Scooby is maybe the most revolutionary part of this. We see man and dog, and they weren't afraid to go there. Maybe they did lack on some other areas, but the relationship between Shaggy and Scooby, I can't see it any other way.
There's this embrace at the end of the movie where Shaggy and Scoob see each other across the room after they've won, and he's had this interaction with Mary Jane for a second, but he puts her he moves her to the side, and Shaggy goes, Scoob, and he goes, Reggie, and then they run at each other. Scooby jumps on him, licks his face a whole bunch. I'm like, you know what? That's the connection I need. That's how you got to rein it in at the end of a Scooby-Doo movie. That's how it always. That's how it's supposed to go. It just truly is. But
talk about some monster design. Those evil. I don't even know if they have.
I thought this was Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that. Like, legitimately, while I was watching Moon Knight, I was remembering back to these creatures. I think I might have even mentioned it on the second watch. I don't know. But I have mentioned it to other people outside, like my cousins that come over, and after we watch the episode, I'm like, did they remind you of any, like, am I crazy? Did this creature remind you of anything in specific? And they were like, I don't know. And I said, well, I'm thinking back to Scooby-Doo, Spooky Island, those creatures that came out, and they were like, "Oh my god, yeah, they kind of have the same kind of feel to them."
They do.
I mean, this movie, it always comes back to me in one way, shape, or the other, and I'm glad it is on this project. It needs to be, because now, we will hold every movie to this standard. Nothing will ever reach it, but we know the print of the crop.
It might be The Godfather. It might be Jaws. It might be Raiders of the Lost Ark. But is it Scooby-Doo 2002? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I think it is just a movie that does transcend time almost. It's crazy. I don't think this movie will ever die.
I mean, what movie in recent memory has as powerful a fart battle as that which transpires between Shaggy and Scooby?
Oh my gosh, they're in those urns or vases.
Oh yeah,
and the reverberation of the fart. I mean, as a child, I laughed so hard at farts. And
yes, this was fart comedy, to be sure. And I usually prefer my movies without fart comedy. I think that can typically be said. But for this, I feel like I can make an exception.
And maybe that shows the strength of this movie.
I think it does.
They can even weave that in there, and
it's still a masterpiece of epic proportions.
This movie had everything. It had the drama, without question, had the drama. I mean, it had you feeling for these characters. The stakes were so high. I didn't know what was going to happen. The comedy was there at every moment. I'm laughing, but I'm also in the back of my mind scared at every moment that one of these characters might go. I'm thinking to the building that had kind of the roller coaster in it, and eventually the food wall that grabbed, everyone, the little man, little guy who's running around in like armor. I was scared of that guy. This movie genuinely had me scared. And, The Shining, doesn't really do the horror that Scooby-Doo, comes up to be. And
not quite, like I could watch The Shining when I was 5. I can't, I had a tough time with this every once in a while. Like I'd turn this on and I go, oh no, I don't know about that. Covering my eyes and at the parts I don't want to see, but I'm always listening. And that's another thing in this movie, the sound design. It's pretty incredible. There's plenty to enjoy. You got those classic cartoon effects, you got the whenever someone's about to take off running or something like that. You gotta have it.
Yeah, it's just, this movie's just truly revolutionary, and I'm glad, that it did come early in my life so that everything following can try to do what this movie did.
And just not quite succeed.
Yeah, it's tough. They even changed the Warner Brothers logo into Scooby-Doo. They changed their whole company name for this movie. Incredible. For a short time, Warner Brothers existed as a Mystery Inc. company. And that's factual. That's true. That really happened.
Turn on the movie and see it for yourself.
It really happened. And just what they had to go through to create these characters and bring them to life so perfectly. I thank James Gunn. I thank the writers. I thank the directors. We were gifted such a perfect movie, and enough people don't realize this. Scrappy really got big there. He got
jacked, and that was one of the things that kind of scared me when I was younger. I was like, oh shit, fuck this. Scrappy's massive now. We're fucked. We're done. He's gonna win. Luckily we went out, but it's scary there for a second.
And this isn't even his full strength. This is a mere fraction of what he can do.
If he'd gotten the pure soul of Scooby-Doo, who knows what could have happened to the world at large?
Oh my gosh.
To the multiverse even.
Yeah, it would have been very scary. Glad that never happened, because if Scooby's soul in the hands of Scrappy, I don't even want to think of what that could mean.
I don't even want to think about what that means we could have lost as a society.
Wow. I thought that Spider-Man, defined my childhood. I thought, that
Spider-Man didn't even define 2002, buddy.
That's true. It's this movie. It's this movie that truly defined my childhood. And honest to God here, this disc, we had it in VHS and disc.
And DVD.
They both were fucked. They were. We had to buy a new we had to buy a new disc. It was that good of a movie. We couldn't go without watching it. We tried the toothpaste on the disc, clean it up, trying to get it all. We tried everything to bring that disc back to life.
Sometimes it's just not in the cards.
And I was very okay with going out and buying another copy of this movie. Honestly, I should own 100 copies of this movie, just for how good it is.
Frankly, I should have kept the DVD industry alive with my purchases of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Wow. Just what a cast, what a performance, what direction. Everything about this movie is just impeccable. I can't think of another movie in all of Hollywood, in all of cinema ever.
Nothing's in this camp. Nothing's in this camp.
Talk about, the adventure too. Jurassic Park, sure. You go on quite a little adventure, but is it Spooky Island?
Raiders, sure, but no, not quite. I say we go ahead and rate this. And across the board,
could be quite the easiest rating that we've ever done. I
think it probably is.
Enjoyment. I can't think of another movie that I do enjoy more. It's sad that this only goes to 5 stars.
I feel like I almost should extend it to 6.
Yeah, I mean it's.
We do provide our scale though. I think it does max out the scale. It's a 5 out of 5 in terms of enjoyment, not just nostalgically. I hadn't watched this movie in some time. It'd been a good few years since the last time I viewed Scooby-Doo, and I can confidently say, upon completing it just this morning, I cried 6 or 7 times during that movie. It was emotionally riveting. There's never we talk Dead Poet Society for how a movie affects you on such a deep level. And Dead Poet Society doesn't resonate on near the level that Scooby-Doo does.
Yeah, this isn't just a cry. I mean, there are some ugly cries.
It's a sob,
and there's there's tissues that are being grabbed. There's and
they're all over the room. And I toss them everywhere.
You have moments of pure joy, pure ecstasy. You have fear, adrenaline pumping through your body. You have everything you could ever want in a movie experience. And yeah, I mean that it makes sense that it's a 5 and nothing else. Nothing else does make sense.
It truly doesn't. It truly doesn't. So I think a Scooby-Doo, I think it has to be a 5 out of 5 there.
And I mean, talk about, a genre. Does this really even fit in a genre? Genre defining? I mean,
we talk about, it's such a genre blender of exquisite taste. You got the adventure. We're heading to Spooky Island and we're doing all this. You got the mystery unraveling there at the end with Scrappy-Doo at the center of the conspiracy. You got the comedy, plenty of funny moments in this movie. We talked about the farts. And the horror. Oh, the horror. And they ramp up the drama on you at places. When Velma ditches. I felt that. That's the first cry.
It's heartbroken.
It's a heart-wrenching scene. And as far as genre is concerned, I think it's got to be a 5 out of 5. I don't see it going any lower. Maybe a 4.99, but nothing below that.
Yeah, this is not just genre defining, it's defining for all of film. So it's incredible what it did, what it accomplished, and I don't even think it does fit in a certain genre. There's no genre that we could get it. It's a movie on its own. It's in a league of its own.
It ascends beyond the bounds of genre. It just, if it were possible, this movie should be all of life.
I mean, we should worship this movie as, we should form religions around this movie. Almost.
And I firmly believe that whenever 2002 is a relic in an ancient history, Ruby Roo might be God.
There will be a Blu-ray copy of Scooby-Doo kept in every wonder of the world, in every important location. This has to be the thing that continues past human civilization. If we put one thing out into space for other life to find, this encapsulates all. We need them to find Scooby-Doo.
We need them to find Scooby-Doo. And frankly, if we're ever going to colonize like the moon or Mars, I don't see a better way to kick off, building a civilization than constructing a perfect replica of Spooky Island. I think that might be the way that we lead our civilization on a new planet, beginning our multi-planetary journey as a species. I don't think there's a better way to kick it off than with an homage to the greatest film that's ever existed.
Yeah, maybe just big screens everywhere, having this movie play on loop 24/7. And there will be people that only watch this movie. I feel they will change their lives just to watch this movie and do nothing else, and it's that good.
I'm confident too that there will be revolutions. They will fight Scooby-Doo being the film, the only film we watch in 2 years.
Yeah, war.
It will be illegal to watch any other movie.
War will not be fought over oil or territory or any of these meaningless things that we fight over now. No, the fight is with Scooby-Doo. And if you guys aren't awoken, to this concept, if you're not in it now, you need to be. The revolution, it's starting. I can feel it. I don't know.
It's in my bones.
Yeah,
and if you're not with Scooby-Doo, then you're against Scooby-Doo. And you will pay the consequences of your actions.
I don't know how you could be against this movie. There are just some opinions that are wrong. And this is an absolute fixed opinion in time.
Obi-Wan Kenobi said, only Sith deal in absolutes, but I think he'd agree if he knew what was at stake here.
And we have Kenobi coming out sometime soon. Maybe there is some reference to Scooby-Doo here coming up, and maybe this is what sparks the revolution, gets people riled up. Will be interesting to see. But there is one rating left, and it is how it did as a film.
Need we elaborate?
And I mean, you guys already know what it's going to be. The performances, the camera work, the visuals of this movie.
The writing.
Oh my God. Imagine writing this story, being the one or the few that came up with the most perfect story in all of cinema, and then adapting it to film so perfectly as well.
Imagine taking the satisfactory ending of The Shawshank Redemption, the dramatics of Good Will Hunting, the horror of The Shining, the comedy of the Jim Carrey trilogy in 1994. If you put that all together and you add a big CGI fucking dog, it's Scooby-Doo.
And I don't even know if that comes close. And that's insane to say. This movie is it is the movie. If we're talking about required viewing for cinema, this is the required viewing. If you have to pick a singular movie from this list, you watch Scooby-Doo. And I'm glad that I was just alive whenever this movie came out.
I get to say I was there, I lived it.
I was in theaters. I saw this the night it came out, opening night. My parents took me.
My parents were irresponsible as fuck and took a baby to the movie theater. I
forced them to take me. I said, this will be the most important day of my life.
Father, you do not know what's to come in about 20 years when the revolution is about to be sparked via this movie. I've seen a message in the stars from Ruby-Doo. You need to take me to see this film.
And who knows, we might have been in the same theater and we didn't know it, at age 2. And that's what this movie does.
Perhaps we're the prophets who are supposed to take it into our own hands to make it so.
Maybe this is
to make it so that Scooby-Doo is.
This is why the gangs of New York had to fall. It needed to happen. This is why it's not available on any streaming platform. And to think that if Gangs of New York would have been available to stream on HBO Max as it was literally a week ago. Coincidence?
I think not. I think I was meant to watch this film at this time.
I think I'm going to clear my schedule. From everything.
I'm going to quit my job.
I know what I'm doing with my life now.
Yeah, I'm going to run for office. And with that, Scooby-Doo is a 5 out of 5 flick, potentially the greatest of all time. And I say that for those who have doubts. I know it's the greatest film of all time.
If you think otherwise, you're wrong.
You are wrong. There are opinions that I am open to hearing out, but that is not one of them. With that, we conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom podcast with 2002 Scooby-Doo, 5 out of 5 across the board, potentially the greatest film of all time. With that, I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me, and it was the biggest pleasure to be here today.
The greatest pleasure. If you would, head to patreon.com/CoraBloom and fund the revolution for Scooby-Doo becoming the only film we will ever watch again. Because I don't have the money to make this happen right now, but if you all donate to my campaign, I will unseat Joe Biden, and I will become God Emperor Colton, along with Vice God Emperor Joseph George, and the Penny Bloom podcast will rule for thousands of years with Scooby-Doo 2002 on Blu-ray as its herald.
We shall convert this movie into IMAX to give people the true experience. We'll do great things for this movie. Who cares? Tax reform, healthcare, meaningless problems.
Meaningless in the scope of what's at hand.
Yeah, this is what we need to focus on. So head over to that Patreon and donate as much as you can.
Hundreds, if not thousands, if you are capable. With that, follow on Twitter at PennyBloomPod. We only have 150 followers, and I don't think that's enough to spark a revolution. Head to Instagram, follow at PennyBloomPodcast. And remember, peace, love, and bloom. And Raggy.